First song is number 457. 457. Some others coming in. Number 457. Well, welcome everyone. If you're visiting, we're glad that you come to be with us tonight. We continue to study the book of Proverbs. We want to sing the songs, and after we sing this song, we'd like to ask Tom if you would read it and pray. 457. If I walk in the pathway of beauty, if I work till the close of the day, I shall see the great King in his beauty. When I go the right side of the way, when I go the right side of the way, I will rest at the close of the day, and I know there's one that will lead me when I walk the right side of the way. If for Christ I proclaim God's glory, if I seek for a sheep gone astray, I am sure He will show me His glory when I know the last side of the way. When I go the last side of the way, I will rest at the close of the day, and I know there's a waiting when I go away. And if here I earnestly strive, and I try all His will to obey, will and end all the rapture of heaven, when I go the last side of the way, when I go the last side of the way, I will rest at the close of the day, and I know there's one that awaits me when I go the last mile of the way. Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for bringing us here tonight to study from your word. We ask that you be with us as we try and clear our minds, stresses of the day, from things that we encounter, from the distractions that we have from you. We ask that you be with us as we sing and study, open our hearts and minds to what we learn here tonight, help apply to our lives. Our sin and pray. The song after the last is number 335. Number 335.
Was looking, if you were wondering why I was clicking, I didn't see the volume from the microphones on the live stream. So I don't know if anybody will be able to hear any of your comments if they watch back on the live stream or not. But we're here, and hopefully they can hear through my microphone at least. We're in a discussion of Proverbs, and we are talking about Proverbs on anger, which is on page 14 of the booklet, if you have that booklet with you. So we will be going through these. Next week is singing night. I know we're not going to get through all of the Proverbs on anger tonight. 2 weeks from now, we'll pause anger. Tommy's going to go back and teach class number 3 on friendship. So that'll be 2 weeks. And I don't know if he'll need 1 week or 2 weeks to cover friendship, but that'll be 2 weeks from now. We'll go back and do, I think it's lesson number 2 or 3. Will be the Proverbs on friendship. So Tommy's going to be leading that 2 weeks from tonight. Begin, we are first talking about the category of the results of not controlling your anger. What are the outcomes of that? And we're going to start with Proverbs chapter 10, verse 12. The ESV says, hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all offenses. Some other translations, hatred stirs up conflict, and then on the other end, covers all wrongs, covers all sins. So offenses, wrongs, sins. So you have this comparison. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all offenses. So right off the bat, what are some observations that you might have from this? Yeah, so let's talk about this love covers all offenses perhaps first. This is not, uh, this is not talking about overlooking, enabling, or denying sins, but this is you forgive and you act like the thing never happened anymore. That when someone confesses to you or you confront someone about their sin and they repent of that, you're not spreading that to other people. You are covering those offenses over like they never happened. We're not overlooking, enabling, or denying sins. That so this is this is actually bearing the offense in the proper way, right? But how does hatred stir up strife? The Yeah, I've had in discussions with people who are having like marriage issues, right? They bring up something that sounds so innocuous to me, like not that big of a deal. But to them, it's just another straw on the camel back onto the mountain of offenses. That's another thing that they have done against me. When I was like, seems to me there's a pretty simple explanation as to why they did this, but it seems like you're reading past history into this situation now. You're assigning motives based upon past experiences when all that person could be doing is just this. Do you think that's possible? Well, then 1 Corinthians 13, love believes all things. We should believe the best in other people. Assign good motives instead of bad motives. But when you're always looking through the lens of bitterness and anger and strife, you're going to see bad motives. And it's going to cause even more strife between you and that person. That this idea of stirring up, it's this idea of agitating a still water or making turbulence where none should be is this idea. And that imagery is going to play out in more of the Proverbs that we're going to talk about tonight. Where do these outbursts of anger start? In the heart, right? It always starts with this hatred, bitterness. Before I have an outburst, it has to start with an inner emotion that I am not controlling, right? Where hatred is easy to do, may come more natural. Where love has to be a decision that I make to cover an offense. I have to purposefully say, I'm not going to continue to rub their faces in this thing. I'm going to let, I may still remember it. It may still hurt me, but I am going to act to them and to everyone else like the thing never happened to me.
Can do better or will do better. And you're willing to, like you said, not continuously hold that against them and instead hope that it will in the future go better.
Because what if God didn't treat us like that, right? In the light of my own sins, how can I say, yeah, I've forgiven you, but I'll never forget it. And I'll never let you forget it either. What if God treated us like that? And then if you say that, have you actually really forgiven them?
Old outbursts and we'll look at how terrible they used to be. And it's almost the opposite when you talk to children. Like they'll have parents who are actively doing things to hurt their feelings and harm them. And they're like, yeah, that's my dad or that's my mom. Like I think that they'll get better. And I think that's the attitude that you see in a child, and that's why Jesus tells us to become like little children and have more of that attitude geared towards love and forgiveness and resiliency. I think we should.
Excellent. So 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 8 is a direct quote of this passage. 1 Peter 4, verse 8 says, above all, maintain constant love for one another, since love covers a multitude of sins. Do you have any other passages that this proverb reminds you of? Absolutely. There's a lot of the passages in 1 Corinthians 13 that you could. Love believes all things. Love is not irritable or resentful, does not rejoice at wrongdoing. There's a lot from 1 Corinthians 13 you could put in this. And then James 4:1, what causes quarrels, what causes fights among you? Is it not your passions that wage war within you? Where do these things start? It comes from my heart, from my passions, like Miss Diane said. All right, next proverb. One who is wise is cautious and turns away from evil, but a fool is reckless and careless. A man of quick temper acts foolishly, and a man of evil devices is hated. So you have a couple other of these translations. The New King James and the King James both have rages and self-confident, or rageth and is confident. It preserves perhaps what the ESV obscures here, that it's more than just being reckless. It means to rage, to burst forth. So when it says in the New King James, a wise man fears and departs from evil, but a fool rages and is self-confident. A quick-tempered man acts foolishly, and a man of wicked intentions is hated. Or a wise person is cautious and turns away from evil. So you have these two comparisons, the wise versus the fool, and then two versions of the fool. You have the quick-tempered fool and the schemer. These are two different guys. That you either have the quick-tempered guy or the guy who is cool. One guy who's hot-headed, one guy is cold and is scheming and plotting. And both of them are called fools here. So reckless and careless. These are someone who ignores caution. A man. It's interesting. This is going to play out later, but the man of quick temper is a Hebrew idiom. It's literally the words. He's a man of short of nostrils. That he's very quick to flare his nostrils. The slightest provocation will cause him to quickly get angry. You can see this in road rage. Just the slightest little provocation. How dare they do that to me? Don't they know who I am? Well, nobody knows who you are, but we can have that type of attitude. This man of quick temper. We'll later on see someone who is long of nostrils, someone who is patient, someone who does not easily has a much longer fuse. This man of evil devices. This is someone who is, this is a guy who is planning, scheming. Both are destructive. Both are called a fool. Either you're plotting of how to get away with something, or you just lose your temper at the slightest provocation. One is hot, one is cold. But the way that this proverb ends, a man of wicked intentions is hated. That how are people going to feel about you if you are that known to be a schemer? Well, you're a fool and you're hated. Anybody have any other comments that they wanted to make on that proverb? Here are the verses that I had to go along with that. Proverbs 29 verse 11, a fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back. Ecclesiastes 7:9, be not quick in your spirit to become angry, for anger lodges in the bosom of fools. And then in the New Testament, let all bitterness, wrath, and anger be put away from you. Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another. Anybody have any other passages? Or, yes, Judah?
Like, I picture it as this like path, this like road, and a bull is not seeing the sign. He's like impatient. He's not seeing the sign, and he has a remote control, and he's controlling a little raccoon.
Okay, I'm not following you. All right, let's go on to the next one. All right, the effects of person's anger on those around them. How, if I am an angry person, how does it affect others? There is one whose rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise bring healing. The American Standard, there is one who speaks rashly like the thrust of a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. CSB, there is one who speaks rashly like a piercing sword. The New King James says it promotes health. So you have this comparison when you have rash words versus healing, a wise tongue that heals. So when you think of a rash word being like a sword thrust, what do you think of? How do those feel? How does it affect the person that you said that to? Who are you more likely to speak rashly with? Complete and total strangers or the people who are closest to you? It's usually the people that you're closest to that you get frustrated with more easily, you lose your temper at more easily, whether it's a sibling or a spouse or a child, that it's easy to lose and just say whatever comes to your mind, because a lot of times you know the exact button to hit to where you know it's going to hurt. and you say the thing and it feels like you just stabbed them. That's what it says harsh words are like. It's to speak without thinking. It's not necessarily malicious. That when you're saying something that without thinking, that you may not even mean something mean by it, but because you weren't thinking ahead of time, that the way the person took it, the damage is the same. We have to be very careful in how we speak. That when it says that these are like sword thrusts, like they cause a true injury that need to be healed, and which brings us to this idea of the tongue of the wise. That the tongue of the wise brings healing. It is active heals. It's not passive. It is intentional. It's not just avoiding damage, but you're actually breathing life into someone. If you're sharing wisdom, if you're choosing your words carefully with the recipient in mind, telling them the truth in a gentle way, it brings healing. Yes.
Upset you or when there's a problem, but how you do that, how you communicate it, you can problem solve together or work to forgive each other versus it becoming a screaming match or an argument. And that is healing, even if the words that you're saying still may not feel good to hear. Like if you're telling someone, hey, what you did upset me, that still doesn't feel good to hear, but how you approach it can be more healing because you're working together to fix whatever conflict there is versus making it worse.
Absolutely. Have you ever heard someone say, or have you ever said, well, I was just venting. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking when I said that. I was just venting. I didn't really mean it. What are those? Brianna? Excuses for what? For using these rash words. But does that person still feel the damage? Still feel the sword thrusts? So do those excuses actually help? No, it's shifting blame on your condition of being angry. Well, that's just who I am. I'm just an angry person. I don't know if you read the introduction part. Talk about the guy who resigned from a job and then wanted it back, and then when it was a little graphic, perhaps, but it's you can't. And the guy's defense was, well, I ate too many Twinkies and I wasn't in my right mind when I did this horrific thing, and I wasn't, so I'm not responsible for my actions, and the jury bought it. That's the thing. That's the crazy thing. Can we say I'm not responsible for my actions when I was using those rash words? I was just venting. I was just angry. Anger can be one of those things where we excuse it away and say, well, that's just my personality. This can be, I don't want to say especially dangerous for women, because men can certainly be, but women tend to think out loud and tend to vent. And if you're venting anger and frustration and saying things you don't mean, those things can be unintentionally hurtful. We need to be careful in the words that we speak. Certainly. But does that justify it? Does that make the sword thrust any less painful? So some passages that you thought of that perhaps go with this one. Ooh. Okay. What does it say? Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. Excellent. Anything else?
verse 6, let your speech always be with grace, seasoned with salt, and you know how.
Yeah, we'll definitely be bringing that one up with some future passages, but it fits this one very well, very much as well. Some other passages that I had here, James 3, verses 5 through 8. A tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a force to set ablaze with such a small fire. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. Just the tongue can be so dangerous. Psalm 57, verse 4. My soul is in the midst of lions. I lay down amid fiery beasts, the children of man, whose teeth are spears and arrows, whose tongues are sharp swords. Proverbs 15, verse 4. A gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit. All right, next one is Proverbs 22, verse 24 and 25. Don't make friends with an angry man, and don't be a companion of a hot-tempered man, or you will learn his ways and entangle yourself in a snare. ESV, make no friendship with a man given to anger, nor go with a wrathful man, lest you learn his ways and entangle yourself in a snare. New King James, I thought was good. It says, make no friendship with an angry man, with a furious man do not go, lest you learn his ways and set a snare for your soul. So you have almost two different types of angry people here. So don't make friends with the angry person, and don't be a companion of a hot-tempered man. I don't know if there's maybe there's not a huge difference, but it seems to me the first person is someone who gets angry. Person number two is someone who is ruled by their anger, that they're dominated by their anger, that master of rage, that they have become enslaved to their anger and they follow those impulses. So what does this say about why should we not be friends with an angry person? Don't be a companion of a hot-tempered man. Why? It gives a reason. You ever notice that in yourself? What does this mean?
Going the wrong path.
You're going the wrong path? Okay. Yeah. You become like the people you surround yourself with. How easily can a marriage spiral when one person doesn't control their anger? Because that lends that it's very easy for the other person to get angry back, and then this person is more angry, and then this person is more angry, and then this person is more angry, and then by the time they say, hey, let's get help, they're already so much at each other's throats that it's poisoned. Yeah.
His friends started to like show the true colors since trying to get Joe to.
Curse God. Yeah, certainly. And she was angry too.
Yeah.
Tommy.
Whoever washes the white becomes white.
Excellent.
Makes us more likely to be angry, but it teaches us to excuse anger as well.
Mhm.
That's our buddy, that's our friend. They have the right to be angry. They're not angry. And you start to excuse things. It's just been how you fall more easily into it yourself.
And when you become angry when you're around them, does your anger, is it only contained when you're around them, or can you also take it home? And then you're sharing anger with your spouse and with your kids and with your neighbors.
By nature, the minute they see you start to get angry, they're gonna hype you up, and they're gonna be like talking you more into being angry.
or getting angry at you, which makes you even more angry, and then there's just strife, like that we talked about in the first one, certainly. When you set a snare for yourself, that a snare is a trap for animals. How are you making a snare for yourself when it comes to choosing friends?
Well, basically, you're just making a mistake. Like, it's what you get in the end. You've gone too far.
You've chosen the friends a lot of times, and when you choose the wrong kind of friends, you set yourself up for a trap that you'll step right in the own trap of your own making. So, some practical application here. How does this? We talked a little bit about how this can affect a marriage. Where do children learn anger from? Watching their parents. All of our parents fought. They had disagreements, all of them. I watched my parents, you watched your parents. How they interacted had a big influence on you and how you handle your own anger. It's part of life. So how are you going to influence your children? How do you show and display your anger? How well do you control your anger?
Our kids will see our friends as well. Your friends are going to be around your children at some point, and they will pick up on how your friends are too, and how your friends influence you. I see that all the time at my work. Kids talking about so and so's, either mom or dad's friend came around. I don't like it when that friend comes around because XYZ happens when they come around. They pick up on that.
Absolutely. How can it affect church culture when there's just one angry guy? If there's one guy who's perpetually angry, how can that affect a church or a company? It makes other people angry. It's contagious. There's a reason, we'll talk about it later on, why it's important for elders to not be quarrelsome, to be self-controlled. And when someone is not practicing self-control, discipline needs to happen. Even if they're there every service, even if they're willing to lead singing, but if they're always contentious and they're always quick-tempered, and really quick to get in the preacher's face about something they disagreed with, whatever it is, or will just argue with a fence post, those type of people can drag a whole church down with them. Heard of a situation that's like this, where it was someone who was in a congregation in the same county, different town, said that congregation used to be huge and now they're just down to nothing, mainly because of one guy. And it would be better if just a new group started in that town. It's wild. Discipline needs to happen in those types of circumstances. How quickly can one person drag everyone else down by their attitude? Miss Diane brought up 1 Corinthians 15:33. In 2 Timothy 3, verse 2 through 5, you're given a whole bunch of people, types of people and it says, oh, avoid these people, and includes people who are brutal, that have this uncontrolled anger. Psalm 1, verse 1, blessed or happy is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of mockers. Who you are around determines if you are blessed or happy, what type of life that you have. All right. This next one is interesting. You have something quite different in New King James and King James versus pretty much every other translation. All those have or at least King James rather. New King James is more like the more modern translations. New King James actually has this reversed. ESV says, "The north wind brings forth rain, and a backbiting tongue angry looks." North wind brings forth rain, a backbiting tongue, an angry face. New King James, north wind brings forth rain, and a backbiting tongue, an angry countenance. King James says, "The north wind driveth away rain, so doth an angry countenance a backbiting tongue." It's reversed. It's King James is almost like if someone is backbiting and you give them a really stern look, it'll make them stop. Which is kind of the opposite of if you have a backbiting tongue, you will get people giving you bad luck. So that's what the other. So what is backbiting? It's not a term we use a whole lot. Yeah, it's talking behind someone's back is the idea. So it is gossip or slander, speaking behind someone's back, and especially and slander would be something that was not true. But if backbiting will bring angry looks, if you are someone who gossips, as sure as the north wind brings forth rain, what is going to happen? It is inevitable. If you are someone who does this, it is going to bring forth anger. That in King James is this: "A stern disapproving look silences the backbiter, as well as the north wind clears the sky." Sometimes, I don't have to actually tell my kids I'm disappointed in them. I can just give them a look, and that immediately makes them stop the behavior that they're doing, and they immediately say, "Oh, I'm messed up. I'm sorry." And it just, I don't even have to say something. It's just a look can do that. So either way, backbiting and anger are connected. Why is anger and gossip go hand in hand?
If somebody hears someone gossiping, they could be angry, not necessarily because they're gossiping about you, but like angry because you shouldn't be gossiping. Or there's also like the disapproval of the fact that they're gossiping about them or something.
Sure.
That causes strife.
If you are gossiping, you should expect to be the recipient of anger if you are someone who gossips. As sure as the north wind brings rain, it's going to come back to bite you. Backbiting. Okay, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Talking about a situation that has happened, maybe that you've heard from someone else, whether it's true or not, and you get annoyed over a hypothetical. You get worked up over something that you shouldn't even be talking about in the first place.
Absolutely. Manure spreaders? Yeah.
My dad got pregnant. I wouldn't tell him anything anymore. You never tell me nothing anymore, my kid. Or the reason.
Yeah. Who's going to trust you if you're a known gossip? All right, some passages that go along with this one. The ones that I have, Proverbs 16, verse 28. "A perverse man stirs up conflict, and a gossip separates close friends." James 4:11. "Do not speak evil against one another, brothers." And Matthew 18, verse 15. If your brother sins, go to him and tell him his fault between him and you alone. So that's the proper way to handle it, is face to face, one to another. All right, next one. Proverbs 27, verse 3. A stone is heavy, and sand is weighty, but a fool's provocation is heavier than both. You ever try to lift up a big thing of a big stone? You have one object. All right, if that falls on you, if it's a really heavy stone, that's going to hurt, right? Someone throws a big heavy rock at you, that's going to hurt. What's the difference between a weighty stone and a weighty backhoe scoop of sand that is dropped on you? I mean, both are not going to feel good, right? That a stone is heavy, sand is weighty, or the New Living Translation, which is a paraphrase, says, the resentment caused by a fool is even heavier, or an aggravation from a fool outweighs them both. New King James, a stone is heavy, sand is weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than both of them. So New King James puts it like how it affects the fool. The other translations have it how it affects the recipient. So you have this graduated comparison. A rock, a humongous pile of sand. Like, it might be easy to dodge a rock. How are you going to dodge a humongous pile of sand? Like, you're just getting dumped on. Here, anger puts a burden on yourself, like King James, New King James, but it also puts a burden on those around you too. And being the target of uncontrolled anger is crushing. It's heavier than a single stone, heavier than a big old pile of sand. If you are constantly the recipient of someone's uncontrolled anger, do you understand how that would weigh on a person? To be continually beat down by someone's harsh words, even if they're not actually putting their hands on you. If you could have a boss who was constantly angry, or a parent who is constantly angry, or a spouse who's constantly angry, it wears you down. It beats you down. And it also beats themselves up. Who wants to be a constantly angry person? Like, anybody want to sign up for that? What kind of relationships are you going to have? But what kind of relationship with your own self? Are you going to be happy and fulfilled? Blood pressure? Yeah. I mean, if it's just a one-time offense, it could be like a stone, right? Something real big, real heavy, hit you real hard out of nowhere. But if it's a constant, everyday thing, I don't know if anybody's ever gone to a job where the boss man just was always angry. Thankfully, I've never had to. But could you imagine who wants to work for that guy? Well, it's perpetual sin. It's always giving in. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. With someone who is constantly angry is like a city without walls that have been torn down. We're going to talk about that maybe tonight. So other verses on this, I had Matthew 11, verse 28 through 30, where Jesus there says, "Come to me, all who labor and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Where that instead of venting to others, instead of letting your anger out on others, give your burdens to Jesus. And He will give rest. With that idea of heaviness. Anybody have anything else that they wanted to add on that one?
The out,
Mm-hmm.
that's the way some people express their anger, is screaming and throwing things, violence. So other people, can express their anger in other ways. It's not talking.
Silent treatment, certainly. You just walk around with just a snarl on your face all of the time. That weighs on the people around you.
Conflict between yourself, feeling that you're not going to work out, and it's impactful.
All right, next one. Wrath is cruel. Anger is overwhelming. But who can stand before jealousy? So you have this triplet here. Other passages, wrath is fierce, anger is a flood. New King James, wrath is cruel, anger is a torrent. CSB, anger is cruel and a flood of wrath. Who can withstand jealousy? King James, wrath is cruel, anger is outrageous. And who is able to stand before envy? So ESV kind of loses the flood analogy that's in the original, but this idea that you imagine just, we've had some big floods, but you imagine just a big old torrent of water, flood water coming and smacking you. Wrath is cruel. Anger is like floodwaters hitting you. But jealousy? You have this rhetorical question that automatically you know what the answer is. Who can stand before jealousy? No one. So let's first talk about this idea of wrath is cruel or wrath is fierce. What do you think of that? How can wrath be cruel or fierce? When you think of someone who is cruel,
Intentional versus anger is more of an outburst that you let get out of control. It's still targeted probably at somebody, but wrath is like almost a calm, plan. I'm going to do something bad.
Wrath can also be the day-to-day. You may not be doing something mean or hateful yourself, but you're taking pleasure in seeing someone go through something. Like, oh, I don't like that guy. I'm glad to see he's having a bad day. You may not have done anything to cause the bad day, but you're still taking pleasure in witnessing.
if you hear of someone who is cruel to animals, it's someone who is enjoying the inflicting of pain on an animal. Like when we say this wrath is cruel, I think that's exactly what this is talking about. Judah?
Like, I'm thinking of like a bully at school.
Sure. Someone who is cruel, fierce. All right, what about this idea of anger is a flood, deluge, torrent idea? That it's like, I wanted to even, I don't know if you've ever seen the videos of like, there's the ocean and there's a beach there, but there's like an enormous pond had flooded or something in the city. So they make a little tiny trench from that to the ocean. And at first it's just a little tiny trickle. But the more that water comes out of this flooded area, the more sand that it brings. And then eventually, like, I was looking up videos of it, and then like guys were surfing in it. There was so much water coming through. It's wild. Because once that dam breaks just a little bit, how are you going to stop it? You know, it's the idea of once one cow gets their head out the cattle gate, like there's going to be another cow right behind. How are you going to shut that gate again? That this flood comes out. Once anger is uncontrolled and is let out, it's like this flood. How easy is it when you are in the heat of anger to pause and take control?
Logic, it's riding out a storm at that point. And you have to, as a practitioner, just keep yourself calm, because at that point, you've got to wait for them to come back down, because there's no reason or logic when they're up top.
You can't reason with a flood. That's what I put on here. And you need to control before the flood breaks. That's what I put. All right, so this rhetorical question. What is the difference then now? Why is jealousy so bad? Can you think of any Bible characters perhaps that had this level of jealousy? Okay. Ahab with the vineyard? Maybe. I think that was more maybe not jealousy, but more covetousness, perhaps. Cain and Abel is an excellent one. That Cain was jealous of Abel's approval from God. And where did that lead? Murder. Anybody else? Joseph's brothers, severe jealousy. Jacob and Esau certainly had a lot of that jealousy and arguing between them. Certainly. That this type of anger is anger over perception that someone has taken something that belongs to me. I deserve the glory that they're getting. I deserve the woman that they got. I deserve whatever it is, and that other person is getting it. How do you overcome? How do you stop that? This is the most ferocious and least rational form of anger. The examples that I had is Cain, Saul, when he was always jealous of David, and then he would just randomly throw spears at David and would inevitably miss. But just because David was in the room and playing a harp, but because other people would sing this greatest hit of the time, that Saul has slain his thousands, but David his 10,000. David had only slain one. It was a really big one. He had slain Goliath, but they made this greatest hit, and everybody's giving David the glory when I'm the king. I should be the one. Well, Saul didn't go out and fight Goliath. David did. But it led to an intense jealousy where he spent a significant amount of time saying David's my enemy and chasing David and trying to kill David. Why? David had done nothing against Saul. It was just jealousy. And who could talk Saul out of it? Mm-hmm.
They feel they're owed something, but it's so easy for them to come to justify it.
Given in Proverbs 6, don't commit adultery with another man's wife. As for jealousy is a husband's fury, therefore he will not spare in the day of vengeance. He will accept no recompense, nor will he be appeased.
Yeah, that's excellent. What verse was that?
Proverbs 6:34.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for your kind attention this evening. We'll end it there. Next time we're in talking about anger, we'll start off with Proverbs 19 verses 18 and 19. So I think we still have plenty to do in these Proverbs on anger for that time. So we will end right there. We'll turn it back over to Mr. Lynn.
Number 335 is a song of encouragement. If you would like, let's stand at this time. 335. Live for Jesus, oh my brother, this is our forever be. Render not to any other. Live for Jesus, live for Jesus, give them all that has to give. On the cross, Redeemer gave his life. Live for Jesus, wandering sinner, under Satan serve no more. Of the promise, prize the winner, thou mayst see when life is Lord. Live for Jesus, live for Jesus, give them all thou hast to give. On the cross, Redeemer gave his life that thou mightst live. Live for Jesus in life's morning, afternoon, tide hour be his. And at eve when day is turning, and in heaven in this place. Live for Jesus, live for Jesus, give him all thou hast to give. On the cross, Redeemer gave his life. It's been good that we've been here tonight. Appreciate so much you being here. We'll meet again Sunday, 9:15 for Bible classes and 10 o'clock for our Assembly worship. Few announcements I want to make before we are dismissed. Dare is still in room 506 in Mercy Hospital, and hopefully we'll go home tomorrow if we get a good report, either tonight or tomorrow. So let's remember